Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today. I'd like to call this meeting of the Council to order. We have two agenda items today. First, we'll hear a presentation about and then vote on proposed amendments to the Council's interpretive guidance on non-bank financial company designations. The Council will also vote on a final rule committing the Council to seeking public comment before adopting any amendments to its interpretive guidance on non-bank designations. And then we'll vote on the minutes of the Council's previous meeting. With that, let's turn to our first agenda item, proposed amendments to the Council's non-bank designation guidance. The proposed interpretive guidance the Council is considering today would make significant changes to how the Council identifies, assesses, and responds to potential risks to U.S. financial stability. Under the proposal, the Council would adopt an activities-based approach that would rely on the expertise of existing regulators to address potential risks. In addition, the proposal would enhance the Council's process for evaluating individual non-bank financial companies for designation by increasing transparency and analytical rigor. Also, by a separate vote, the Council will adopt a rule requiring the Council to issue any future amendments to its non-bank guidance for public notice and comment before adopting changes. So let me turn to Bimal Patel, who will present on the proposed guidance.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The proposed interpretive guidance the Council is voting on today would replace the Council's existing interpretive guidance on non-bank financial company determinations. The Council is also voting today on a final rule that would require any future changes to the Council's guidance on non-bank designations to be issued for public notice and comment. The proposed guidance describes the approach the Council intends to take in prioritizing its work using an activities-based approach. It also includes a series of reforms to enhance the analytical rigor and transparency in the processes the Council intends to follow if it were to consider making a non-bank determination, including cost-benefit analysis, the consideration of likelihood of material financial distress, and pre- and post-designation off-ramps to designation. The proposed guidance states that the Council would pursue entity-specific non-bank designations only if a potential risk or threat to U.S. financial stability cannot be addressed through an activities-based approach. Importantly, the proposed guidance emphasizes the importance of market discipline as a mechanism for addressing potential risks to U.S. financial stability. The activities-based approach is designed to leverage the expertise of primary financial regulatory agencies and allow them to address identified potential risks. It is also designed to reduce competitive distortions from government intervention by addressing risks in a consistent manner. The proposed guidance would establish a two-step process for the activities-based approach. First, the Council would monitor markets to identify and assess potential risks to U.S. financial stability. Second, the Council would then work with relevant regulators to seek the implementation of actions intended to address the potential risks. Only if a potential risk or threat cannot be addressed through an activities-based approach would the Council potentially evaluate a non-bank financial company for a potential determination. The proposed guidance would also make several changes to enhance the analytical rigor and transparency of the non-bank designation process. To make the designation process more efficient, the proposed guidance would condense the current three-stage designation process into two stages by eliminating current stage one. To enhance analytical rigor, under the proposed guidance, the Council would perform a cost-benefit analysis prior to making a determination. Only if the expected benefits to financial stability from the determination justify the expected costs would the Council make a determination. The Council would also assess the likelihood of a non-bank financial company's material financial distress when evaluating the firm for a potential designation. To promote transparency, the proposed guidance would also increase the Council's engagement with companies and their existing regulators before and during the designation process. The increased engagement would provide a company with a potential pre-designation off-ramp. The proposed guidance also includes procedures intended to clarify the post-designation off-ramp. Finally, I'd like to thank the council members and their staffs for their tireless assistance in developing these important changes, and look forward to receiving comments from the public.
Bimmel, thank you very much. Before we consider a vote, I know several of the council members would like to make some comments. So Chairman Powell, I will first turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the amendments to the guidance do a good job of explaining to the public how the Financial Stability Oversight Council plans to address systemic risks. So I'd like to thank everyone involved for their commitment to developing a workable process. And I support an activities-based approach for addressing systemic risk and support releasing the amended guidance for public comment. Such an approach represents a disciplined framework for approaching financial stability. I think the FSOC's annual report effectively uses an activities-based approach because it focuses on potential emerging threats and vulnerabilities associated with the major financial markets activities underway. There are many cases when designating companies will not reduce market fragilities. The activities-based approach envisions constructive engagement with the primary regulators who have the tools and the expertise to address such fragilities. The process for activities-based approach described by the amended guidance focuses on monitoring a wide variety of risks and assessing how those risks might be propagated through the financial system. This guidance also preserves non-bank designations, which should be used sparingly but remain an important tool for addressing financial stability risks. The guidance will benefit from input by stakeholders and members of the public, and I very much look forward to reviewing public comments in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair Clayton, would you like to make some comments?
My first comment is to agree with Chairman Powell's comments. Thank you. Then two comments. One is on the principles here. I agree with the principles, that the transparency, the engagement, the active monitoring of risk, and the collaborative approach across the members of the FSOC, which was demonstrated in pulling together this very good product. And I want to thank my colleagues and their staffs for what I think is an excellent product that has principles and has a lot of flesh on the bones. As I look at this, and have talked to some of my colleagues here, I believe that it would have worked well in the past in identifying some of the risks that we have seen come to fruition. Said another way, it back tests well, in my view. I would like to hear from the public and other commentators whether they believe that it back tests well. But again, I thank you, Bimmel, you and your colleagues, and all the members of the FSOC for their work on this, what is a very high-quality product.
Thank you. So we'll continue along this side of the table. Chair McWilliams, any comments?
To the Council for the commitment to the transparency and opening this up for public comment, as well as for the emphasis on the primary regulators' duties and obligations under their organic statutes and mandates. And I'm especially grateful that we have taken a very thoughtful approach to looking at the supervisory tools available at the primary regulators, and if that's exhausted and insufficient to manage systemic risk, going to the next stage of the designation. So I thought it's a very thoughtful document. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll continue the collegial nature of this conversation, but I certainly associate myself with my colleagues' comments. I would add one other factor in terms of a consideration that was added to the proposed guidance, and that's on cost-benefit analysis. It is a good government principle. It's certainly a hallmark of the activities that we're undertaking at the Bureau, and something that I think is a good addition to the process of non-bank designation and the rigor of the analysis that is conducted in the proposed guidance. So thank you.
Thank you. I thank the staff for their work and my colleagues for their comments. I mean, one question is, what is this activities-based report or response approach? It basically requires FSOC to follow the money and look for areas of overconcentration in risky, dubiously underwritten assets, loans, investments, and ill-conceived other investment-type activities. Now, why is that? If you look back over the last generation or so to the S&L crisis, LBO, LDC, .com in 2008, 2009, there was a common denominator there. They were all triggered by overconcentration in poorly underwritten assets. Those assets at the beginning looked great, but they turned bad as more and more money chased dubious assets. So now we've come up with an approach that, to me, actually matches what has occurred in the marketplace over my 37-year legal career, and I think that's very helpful. I also think this approach will work fine, segue well into addressing non-bank financial institutions. After all, AIG received a $180 billion bailout because they were over-concentrated in dubious CDSs and other derivative activities. Now, keeping that in mind, I think if we identify the overconcentration, we identify the activities, we should not hesitate to designate those entities that are engaged in that activity, assuming that the primary regulator is not doing their job and Congress is not looking for a structural change. Thank you.
No, I think this is really the first time I've seen any real substantive structure behind the idea of an activities-based approach. There's been a lot of talk about it, but I think this is the first time that I've seen the real elements. And I think Bimmel and his team certainly, and others, have really worked in bringing together the elements that need to be considered when applying a system-wide approach. And at the same time, still keeping in mind the relationship with the primary regulator and being mindful of the statutory obligations of the council.
Thank you. Joseph Otting, you have twice as much time if you want.
Thank you
have
very
two
much.
agencies.
I support the proposal to revise the non-banks interpretive guidance, which is consistent with the recommendation in the November 2017 U.S. Treasury report. The proposal shifts FSOC's focus away from the designation of individual companies as systemically important to an activities-based approach for identifying potential market-wide risks to financial stability. This approach would rely upon the expertise of the primary regulators to address the identified risks. Should the FSOC consider designating a non-bank financial company as systemically important, the proposal includes positive changes to the process. Such changes include the addition of a determination of the likelihood of the company experiencing material financial distress and analysis of benefits and costs. The proposal ensures FSOC continues to serve its primary function in a transparent, efficient, and effective manner. I would like also to thank the FSOC staff and the staff at all the member agencies for their hard work on this proposal. Thank you very much.
Mr. Secretary, the value proposition of the Financial Stability Oversight Council is to bring together the expertise and skill sets of the different agencies that are represented here. And in the proposal that's being put out to the public, it really does go a long way to bring the expertise of a primary regulator and then the other regulators together to look at activities and determine what their likelihood of financial stability risk is and whether steps should be taken. I think the proposal is an excellent proposal. I think it's been improved as we've worked through it with input from all the members of the FSOC. So I think it's a very good proposal, and I very much support it.
Thank you. State insurance regulators believe that the most appropriate approach to addressing risks to financial stability is for the FSOC to work in conjunction with the existing regulators to identify those risks and to utilize regulators' authorities to address them in the first instance. The proposed guidelines reflect these important concepts, and I support the proposal. And I also very much appreciate and support the changes to the designation and the annual review process, which now provide for a more robust exit ramp for designated firms and provides designated firms and their regulators more transparency into the reasons for any firm-specific designations. And I look forward to hearing feedback from my fellow state regulators and stakeholders on the details of the proposal.
Terrific. Are there any other questions or comments from anybody? Okay, terrific. Is there a motion to approve the resolution on the notice of proposed interpretive guidance?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can I say aye twice?
You can. The resolution is approved. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the resolution on the final rule regarding notice and comments on the council's guidance for non-bank financial company designations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution is approved. Thank you very much. Okay. Our next agenda item is to vote and approve the minutes of the council's last meeting. Are there any questions on the minutes? With that, is there a motion to approve the resolution approving the minutes of December 19th,
So moved.
2018? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Terrific. The resolution is approved. Thank you all who have joined us today for our open session. We appreciate it, and appreciate all the hard work for all the staffs that worked on this to get us to this point. Thank you very much, everybody.